Positional season preview number 2 today. We're talking power forwards. Pascal Siakam and Obi Toppin are certainly fours. We'll also talk about the two-way guys at the end today. It's all coming today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers, as always. My name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, continuing the season preview series today, looking at power forwards and two-way players, because there's only two guys who fit the power forward criteria. You could have put Jarris Walker here. You could have put Johnny Furphy here. I'm putting them in the threes for now. So today's going to be a lot of Pascal Siakam, a lot of Obi Toppin, and then we'll rapid fire through the two-way contract players at the end. If you are new to this series, a from the past style that I did with Caitlin Cooper in the past and I'm doing alone, it's one stat, one question, and one skill that will really matter for the shape of all of these players' upcoming seasons. And we'll start with Pascal Siakam. Quick bookkeeping at first. Jalen Slauson did sign with the Pacers on an Exhibit 10 deal yesterday. If you listened to the Newser segment last week, maybe Monday. Yes, on Monday, I did mention that is something to keep an eye on after the Noblesville Boom traded for his G League rights. As usual, keep an eye on those G League trades. They often lead to Exhibit 10 deals, and Jalen Slauson, the first one for the Pacers. He's already in the NBA, so he could be waived before camp starts, and the Boom would own his rights. Okay, that's not what today's about. Today is about Pascal Siakam first and foremost, and then we'll do Toppin. And we will start with Pascal Siakam by saying, one, I already talked about a big question with him earlier in the offseason about what kind of load he can handle as a vet, as the number one option. So we're going to avoid that topic today. That already happened on the Veteran Questions episode. What I was curious about with Pascal and what I wanted to start with is something that is a factor of stardom, of a bigger role, and that is the relationship for a lot of players, not all, but a lot of players, between their true shooting or their just general efficiency and their usage rate, right? Because for Siakam, the prevalent theory about those two stats does hold, which is for almost every player, sans maybe the best 5-10 players in the league, as your usage goes up, there's a point where you hit your perfect usage, where the amount of involvement you have allows you to be as efficient as you can. And then if you take on a bigger load, that means you're taking shots that are too challenging for you or not good enough for your offense, and your true shooting percentage starts to dip. And you see that with Siakam's career. The biggest usage rate he's had in this decade, so since 2020 started, was in 2019-20. His true shooting percentage was 55.4% that year. That's his second lowest since he won Most Improved Player, right? The following year, he had 26.3% usage, and he had the lowest true shooting percentage he's had since his rookie year, right? Whereas with the Pacers, he has better teammates. They run a more widespread out the ball system. His usage rate drops into the lower into the 20s, right? With Toronto, it was really high right before he got traded. His true shooting was meh. And then with the Pacers, immediately his true shooting's in the 60% range. 59.9% last year, 60.2% the first year, with about a 2 or 3% drop in usage rate. The year he won Most Improved, his usage was 21%. His true shooting was a career high 63, right? There's a clear, somewhat built relationship for Pascal Siakam of what can he handle and how efficient can that be for him and the team. And for the Pacers, that is going to be a huge question, because there's no doubt his usage is going to go up. He's the number one option. Rick Carlisle already mentioned he could be a closer. He's going to take important shots. He's going to have a very big scoring role and be asked to do a lot as a leader for the Pacers offense, as a guy who legitimately draws defensive attention wherever he is on the floor. What is that going to do to his true shooting percentage, right? The past says it will fall some from the 59.9% that he produced last year. How far that falls will determine how successful I think he can be as a primary scoring option, right? The first year he had with the Pacers, albeit in a 41-game sample, with just half a season, his usage was 25%. His true shooting was 60%. So can he get his usage where it was when he was like peak asked of Toronto, 2022-23, early in the season, for example, 27.7%, and keep his true shooting where it has been recently, where he's clearly taken strides as a shooter and as a finisher and keeps adding to his bag as his speed is also a weapon. That I think will be very telling for his season and what he's capable of and what the Pacers are capable of in the future if he's ever asked to do that when Haliburton does come back and they might need Siakam to do certain things. The skill I want to talk about with Pascal Siakam this season, another under-discussed part of this summer, not under-discussed, I would say, but not discussed a lot, is can he find space when there's less space? What I mean by that is a lot was, I think, rightly made when the Pacers traded for Pascal Siakam about, wow, look at this perfect fitting front court of Siakam and Miles Turner. I don't remember ever finding the quote myself, but a lot of people referenced like Siakam saying that Miles Turner would be his ideal front court partner, somebody who can really space the floor but still has variety to their game, can come inside the arc, and they kind of both form an inside-out tandem in the front court that's really hard to guard. And a lot of other teams really struggled to cross-match defend the Pacers because if you put somebody too slow on Turner, he can space you out for three. If you want to put that guy on Siakam, who's not going to space you out, Siakam's so fast, he'll just blow right by him. The Bucks said this is hard to deal with. We can't figure it out. The Knicks at times said we don't know how to deal with this. We don't know how to figure it out. And it was very helpful for the Pacers to have that. And the spacing Miles Turner provided was very beneficial for Siakam to have more wiggle room to operate in the lane, to cut into his spots, just to be a good player. And so now that is going to be less space, right? It just is. Maybe Jay Huff can up his volume or play starter level minutes and shoot just as well. And then there might be some spacing provided. And that is, of course, one of the arguments for Jay Huff starting. And perhaps the most compelling argument for Jay Huff starting is if Jay Huff starting makes Pascal Siakam better, even if Isaiah Jackson might be a slightly better and more skilled player, making Siakam better has a ton of value. And Jay Huff could start. This episode's not about Jay Huff, it's about Siakam. And so that's what I wonder is if either Jackson is starting, which I still think is the more likely thing ever so slightly, or Huff is starting but isn't like drawing a ton of attention with his shots, what can Siakam do with less space, especially if he's going to be asked to be, like we already talked about, a heavily involved borderline primary option for a team with winning aspirations if there's not a lot of room to do that. Now, granted, he has a very nice mid-range game. He's a very refined and varied shot diet. Like, it's not like he needs spacing to be awesome, but if he's going to be asked to play, make more, create more, or just be more involved, having more space is valuable, and he's probably going to have less with different front court partners this year. What can he do? How much space can he find with less space? My one question about Pascal Siakam, can he get to the foul line more often? Throughout his career, he's had some success here, 36% free throw rate, his best season with Toronto, but roughly for his career, a little below 30%. And with the Pacers last year, 26.1% free throw rate, which is the lowest he's had since 2017-18, which is quite low for an all-star front court player as well. And just in general for an all-star. Last year, there were 26 guys named all-stars, 2 replacements. Of those 26, Pascal Siakam's free throw rate ranked 19th. The players he was ahead of, Jalen Williams, Cade Cunningham, Steph Curry, Tyler Hero, Kyrie Irving, Darius Garland, and Victor Wembanyama. Did you catch a theme of those 7 players? The theme to me that I hope jumped out at you is that they're all guards, except for Wemby. Wemby's obviously the outlier there. He's certainly not a foul drawing center, but the rest of the guys behind Siakam are perimeter players or ball handlers, and Siakam is basically a perimeter player. Like, he's not posting up or inside the arc very often, but forwards, and it's particularly all-star forwards, their free throw rate is in the mid 30s, right? Mid 30%. That's where Evan Mobley's at. That's where Karl Towns is at. Jaren Jackson, Kevin Durant, those kind of players. You don't need Pascal Siakam to be in the Shea, AD, Giannis tier. I shouldn't have said Shea's a guard, but just like the high-end forwards guys. That's not what he is. But can he get his free throw rate even to like Tatum levels? Or even it'd be better if it was a higher number. That would go a long way for him because that would help with a lot of the stuff being talked about today. Doesn't matter as much as there's clogged up spacing if you can abuse contact to your advantage. It doesn't matter if your shot diet is a little more challenging. If you can get to the free throw line more often, great. That's some easy points and some easy ways to stay efficient and keep your true shooting percentage up. Pascal Siakam has this weird thing where it feels like he's not a good free throw shooter and he shoots like 75% from the line. But if he can find a way to get there more often, which is the thing that all-star players typically are capable of, although the Pacers' best scorers or best players of the last X amount of years, basically since I've been covering the team, have very rarely been awesome foul drawers. That would go a long way for him in the next steps of his game, but has never been something he's been awesome at. Certainly something he was good at times in his career, but a sub 30% free throw rate is rather interesting for a star level forward. Let's go to Mr. Obi Toppin, who has a very interesting time in his career coming, where his best position and his natural position and his progression all are kind of coming to a head. But first, we got to talk about 5-Hour Energy and their transfusions. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy transfusions. The grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. What is your favorite golf day memory? There's so many for different people. For me, it's playing with my friends all the time. We just get a little goofy and wild with it. And a lot of my friends are way better than me, so I enjoy making fun of them when they mess up every so often. I don't think they appreciate that. Regardless of what it is, golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of the 5-Hour Energy transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down that beverage cart. So you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win your dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters. Ends October 31st, 2025. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Bulls. Josh Giddey. About 4 years, $100 million. I will predict right now, this is just a guess, perhaps I'm wrong. I'm wrong all the time, that there is funny money on the back of that. Either that is a team option or some non-guarantees or some bonuses or whatever. I'll predict that is not a straight, fully guaranteed deal, but mark that down for these pretty good restricted free agents. Cam Thomas takes the qualifying offer. Josh Giddey gets $25 million a year. Ben Mathurin is taking notes and figuring out what his next summer could look like. And Locked On Bulls will tell you even more about Josh Giddey. Okay, let's talk about Obi Toppin this season, starting with his one stat. And this one is really interesting to me because I think not the story, but a big story of Obi Toppin's time with the Pacers has been the Pacers player development machine turning him into a much better three-point shooter, right? His volume continually grew with the Knicks, but his percentage never got above 34. Both seasons with the Pacers, it's been above 34, 40% that first year with the Pacers. And that was a huge part of what made him not required to pair with Haliburton to be on the floor and be at his best and still be a useful player all the time. It's like, oh, he can really shoot. Like, this is real. Last year, he was a slightly above league average in terms of percentage guy. His volume is meh. It's not low. But it's certainly a part of Obi Toppin's game. It's like, yeah, this is reliable-ish. Like, if he takes a three, that's a good end of a possession shot for the Pacers. That's, 1.1 basically points per possession. That's great. However, think about Obi Toppin, right? No one is like, that's a shooter. Yes, this guy should be shooting all the time. And a lot of shooting numbers say that he's shooting a lot. His average shot distance last year compared to his first season with the Pacers went up 2.2 feet farther from the rim. It wasn't his highest season ever. That was his final season with the Knicks when it was 16 feet. Last year was almost 15 feet. And it was below 13 his first year with the Pacers. Naturally, he's such a good dunker and so good in transition that I think in the perfectly optimal Obi Toppin role, that number is a little lower than it is right now. And that's something I wonder for this season between the positions he might play, which we'll get to in a second, between his growth as a shooter, with the Pacers' needs coming this year, where optimizing every single shot is going to be fascinating. The Pacers want that distance to keep elongating. Do they want him to keep being a guy who's willing to take a bunch of jumpers? They want to find ways to have Obi Toppin be like super explosive rim guy that's just unguardable when he can shoot around the basket. And remember, like, this isn't something I'm suggesting Obi Toppin takes more than maybe once a game, but Dayton Obi Toppin was like running into the lane and taking mid-range shots. And then he makes one in a game, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot he used to do that all the time. Like, can he add any refinement to his game between the rim and the three-point line in a way that also could make him a little more threatening of an offensive player? His shot distance and the way he's getting those could be an interesting way to keep an eye on that. One skill for Obi Toppin, I'm doing the duh one here. It's his defense, right? It just is his defense. It's not a fun answer, but I think it's certainly a part of the Obi Toppin experience in a way that has been revealing, right? Even as he continues to get better on the offensive end and adds skills here and adds, mental ability to fit in and do all these things there. And his focus has gotten way better. And he's been a really good player and his teammates love him. His defense has never really improved in a way that's like, oh, this is an average defender, or like, oh, this is a good defender. I think Obi Toppin had his moments when he's defending fives. He has the athleticism to make like high leverage block plays and be a deterrent around the rim. And that's why he guards centers okay. But on the perimeter, his like angles and foot speed are a little goofy. He gets beat off the bounce a lot. And some of this is a consequence of playing with the bench and not with the starters where most of the Pacers' best defenders are. And some of this is the consequence of Obi Toppin is Obi Toppin. But the Pacers' defense was just way worse when he was on the floor last year. Last year, Pacers' offensive rating with Toppin on was better than when he was off, right? An additive offensive player. We knew that already, even regardless of his bench versus starter role. The Pacers' defensive rating with Toppin on the floor was 119.5. When he was on the bench, it was 110.8. Almost 8 points per 100 possessions worse defensively with him out there. He backs up Siakam with a nice defensive season. He's not playing as much with Turner because he's in the bench groups, right? The way he's on the floor and with who also influences those numbers. I'm not blind to that. But I think Obi Toppin would tell you that improving his defense should be like probably the next thing on his checklist of, being a key player development piece for the Pacers. So I'll be very, very interested to see if he can take any sort of leap or step forward in that area. The athleticism suggests it should be there, but it's a lot of like straight line athleticism. I think everybody knows what that means. Like if he's heading towards the rim in a straight line, he's going to jump higher than you. He's going to be just as fast as you. His side to side stuff is not as impressive. His shuttle run time would not be as impressive as his 40, right? So that's where I think that hurts him on defense, despite being an athletic player. And any technique changes or anything of the sorts that can make him more effective on the less glamorous end, I think would go a long way for an Obi Toppin that is clearly a good offensive player. Nights where he is truly great on the offensive end, won the Pacers games with many good players out because he's such a talented offensive player. Can he add to his defense a little bit this year? My one question for Obi Toppin is more existential, more like the Pacers as a team, and not as much like here's things Obi Toppin does specifically that really matter. How much 5 is too much 5 for Obi, right? I've said this a lot this summer. A lot of people who cover the Pacers or talk about them have brought this up rightly. Like everybody projects the starting lineup at the bench, and here's Jay Huff, and here's Isaiah Jackson, and who's going to start and who's not. And then everybody says at some point they admit, like, well, the Pacers' best 5 has Toppin and Siakam as the front court and has neither of those players on the floor right there. I would guess that they would close with Toppin at the 5. He can defend okay. He adds a lot of spacing, which solves the Siakam spacing question I asked last segment. Like he's a good player at the 5. It's worked well. Last year, the Pacers played, I can't find it. There it is. 469 minutes with Toppin and Siakam together in the front court, plus 2.6 net rating. That's good. With Toppin, no Siakam, minus 4.66. With neither, it was minus 1.9. Obviously, with Siakam, no Toppin, the numbers were sensational because Siakam's a great player and the starting lineup was great with him out there. But finding success with that duo is significant. And like Obi Toppin's season turned for the better when he started to play more center in December, right? He has a track record in the past of being a good center and the Pacers being good when he plays that position and like winning, as often, if not more, than they typically would. So what is the right balance there? How often do they want to go, this is our best lineup, let's go, you're the center, Obi Toppin, versus the Pacers need to figure out the future at their center spot. Is Jackson involved? Is Huff involved? Are they good enough to win games right now? Are they good enough to win games in the future? Those are more important questions. And I think it's probably safe to say 40 plus minutes will be occupied at the 5 by one of those two players. But in certainly situations where the Pacers need their best offensive 5 on the floor, in late game situations where the Pacers are looking for certain potency and some high leverage spots, it would not shock me at all if they turn to Toppin and Siakam. But I don't think they'll ever start together, although it's possible. But I wonder how much 5 is the right amount of Obi Toppin, both for him because he's better on defense at the 5 and has similar offensive impact, but it's more bruising, it's more challenging of a position to play. There'll be certain 5s that kick his butt. What is the right amount of center for Obi Toppin to play this season and really ever, right? I think he's more naturally and should more often play the 4 than the 5. But big picture, like what if he could be the backup 5 the backup 4 and like the emergency 5, like actually planned and not just, we're out of centers. That's possible to me. So I'll be very curious what he does at the 5, what he's capable of doing, and if he and Siakam can continue to be a troubling front court combo for other teams. Let's finish up today with the two-way players, guys that were hard to fit into any other position. So we'll talk quickly about Quentin Jackson, Talon Peter, and Ray J. Dennis to close out today's Locked On Pacers. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen could be Locked On Clippers for the latest on this Kawhi stuff. I feel like a sucker for all this. It's so interesting to me. It's such an interesting story. It's right up my alley with cap geekery involved, and it's right up everybody's alley. It's a star player, and the rules are being questioned. And every time I listen to a new thing, I immediately am drawn to that theory being correct. And so I keep toggling between like no punishment and huge punishment and none and huge, because the last thing I heard is so influential, and I just don't know enough about this topic, and lots of experts do. Really fascinating stuff. Locked On Clippers will have more. I just don't know what to think. And I can't tell if I'm a sucker, if I'm being smart for like taking in the info and processing it, but it's very, very interesting. And it's a situation that I have not even seen since my time covering the league. Locked On Clippers will have more. Okay, two-way players, Talon Peter, Quentin Jackson, Ray J. Dennis. I don't want to do a whole episode on those guys. They don't really naturally fit into any of the other position groups. There's only two power forwards for the sake of this exercise, so they get to go here. We'll go as fast as we can, where you're still understanding and hopeful that what I'm saying is a good projection for the player season with these questions, but also not too fast that we blow right through things and talk too fast. Let's start with the vet, air quotes, of the two-way group. Quentin Jackson, good player, right? 28 games last year, started 7 times, won the Pacers' real games, played well in some losses, particularly that Houston game that lives rent-free in my head, can certainly score. For Quentin Jackson, is this real, is my stat, because last year in the regular season, which if the Madden's things are confusing, there's like the cup and then the regular season, the playoffs. In the regular season, he shot 40.9% from three. That's a good number. He was on fire from deep in the tip-off tournament part of the season, but he only played 3 games. He shot well-ish in Summer League. Like, is there a jumper on this dude? That would be a crazy change of pace for his ability since he's so fast with the ball, which we'll talk about later. Can Quentin Jackson shoot? If he can shoot, that's really going to be interesting to see what that means for his season, both when he does and does not have the ball, and who he's playing with, and how much they can even afford to keep him in the G League. My one skill for him is game management, right? Quentin, I cheated here. I did too, because Quentin Jackson played point guard because they needed somebody to play point guard, but he was more like a scoring and defensive guard than a true setup man, organizer type. That would really make it obvious for him to be the third point guard this year, and they wouldn't need to go out and get somebody else, which I've talked about both branches of that path in the past. It would be super easy for them to decide if they felt really confident that Quentin Jackson could be the third string one and really easily pass the ball and set everybody up possession by possession. That's just not an obvious thing with him right now. And so can he be a game manager? Can he be a point guard? Where does that take him in his career and his time with the Pacers? And my one question for Quentin Jackson, can the speed translate to defense? He's a pretty good defender. I think he could be a great defender. He's so fast. He's so bouncy. He can only guard a few positions because he is 6'5" and a little thin and turns 27 in a couple days, actually. But he should be able to guard better than he does sometimes. And I think that would be the next step for him in his career, is taking a step forward defensively, because he's certainly talented and good offensive player. Let's go to a non-point guard in Talon Peter, and we'll close with Ray J. Dennis. Talon Peter, my one stat, take some twos, man. In college at Liberty, Talon Peter took 3.4 twos per game at Liberty and 0.7 at Tennessee Tech. Now, that's obviously an insanely low number at Tennessee Tech. He played 8 minutes a game. Ignore that. But 3.5 twos per game in 23 minutes for Liberty, when he was almost always the number one option on the floor. Take some twos, get in the arc, and really just take shots in general. That was the thing in Summer League with him that just kept making me take notes. And it's like, just shoot, you're open. I know you don't want to make a mistake. You want to keep the ball moving, and that's all great. Like, that's not going to hurt your team, but you could really help them by scoring, or like shot faking and putting on the floor and going to score. We know Talon Peter can dunk, right? We know that he has athletic pop at the basket and can finish there. Get some twos up. Not because they're going to be way more efficient than his threes, but just because I think that'll help him develop his game towards the player that he needs to be and can be, given his history. One skill for Talon Peter, I use this one for top, and it's important here as well. The defense. And that was one of my questions going into Summer League, is what else is he going to show besides the three and besides the athleticism? He defended capably well. He hung outside of getting swallowed up by a bunch of screens. He hung with the ball handler. He used his chest to defend. He didn't foul that much. He stayed with guys. Pretty good defensive summer league. Is that a real thing, right? That changes the perception of Taylor Peter as a prospect, where my initial sales pitch post-draft was like, oh my God, do you see this guy's numbers? Like, just look at this. And then look at what he's doing in games. He can clearly shoot and dunk. Oh, he can also guard, or like it's not embarrassing if he has to guard. That would go a long way for him as well. So defense is my one skill for Taylor Peter. My question, what type of player do you profile as Taylor Peter? It's possible that he could be a shooting 2, maybe a 3-and-D player, maybe just an athletic bench microwave guy. They've drafted or had all of these types of players at some various points. They all can fill different roles. They all fit better with certain players. Their future is the length that it is because of what bucket they fit into. I think for the Pacers, it'd be great if Taylor Peter was a 3-and-D wing who happens to be really athletic. I think a more likely outcome is that, he's a good shooter, scorer type, but the rest of it is kind of coming along a little slower. What type of player is Taylor Peter? We'll find out this season. I'm very fascinated to see that. Last up is Ray J. Dennis, and I want to go backwards with him because my one question is, could he actually be the third point guard? Not that Quentin Jackson can't be point guard. He handled it last year in dire situations. I've seen him in the G League be the lead ball handler, but if you think of like typically and historically what a point guard is and what the role of that player can be, Ray J. Dennis is better at that kind of stuff. The traditional point guard experience for him is like more of a thing. He averaged in the regular season part of the G League season last year for the Mad Ants over 9 assists a game. His assist percentage with the Pacers was 27%. I will never forget Ray J. Dennis. It's his second game with the Mad Ants, I think. Maybe his first home game. And he has the ball, and he's dribbling across half court. He's looking at his teammates, and he calls a play that came over from the sideline, and no one knows it right. And Ray J. Dennis, who is brand new to the team, is pointing out where to go for everybody and getting them in the right spot. Could he actually be the third point guard? Is there a chance that his passing and creation is enough for him to be the guy that would go to after McConnell and Nembhard instead of anyone else like Cam Jones or Quentin Jackson? That's a reasonable question to me just because of the skills he has. I don't think he should play over any of those guys, to be clear, but like, could he actually be the third point guard? Is he enough that they would play him over Q in emergency situations? I don't know. I think it's very interesting to think about that. But my one stat to push back on my theory of like, look how many assists he had is turnovers. He had a lot of turnovers, right? Turnover rate in the NBA, 13%. Turnovers per game in the G League last year in the regular season, 4 turnovers per game. Really still good assist to turnover ratio with the 9 assists. But that's a lot of turnovers, right? Got to reel that in. He has some passes that get tipped, some that are just like he reads something a little different or his teammate does. If he could take care of the ball, which is a very big part of the Pacers' identity and what makes them so good offensively, that would be way, way, way more valuable than what he has been. And he's already a somewhat to good caretaker and good passer. My one skill for AJ Dennis is the boring one. Put the ball in the basket, man. It's got to go in. That's a big thing for every young player. True shooting percentage, 44% last year for AJ Dennis. He went 6 for 21 on threes and 5 for 12 on twos in the NBA, right? He's got to put the ball in the basket. And Summer League was certainly encouraging. He was making shots. Almost every game he played big minutes in, but if he could make more shots, that would go a long way and pair well with any sort of increased passing or anything like that. They kept him around for a reason, right? He's a good player. Okay, that does it for today's After the Two-Way, guys. Power forwards season preview. We'll get to 2 of these next week. I believe power forwards and small forwards and shooting guards are next week. But after 7 straight days of just me, finally, the guest train. I think the next 3 episodes will all have somebody else. Dave Searle is going to be here tomorrow. We're going to talk about rule changes that we'd like to see in the NBA, what they could mean for the Pacers. We're going to talk about Miles Turner's legacy with iPacers blog on Friday, and then a couple fun things coming next week. Thank you all so much for listening. You can find me on social media at Tony R. Reese. This podcast has a Twitter and Instagram account at Locked On Pacers. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you very soon.